All right, folks. Thanks for joining today. My name is Freddie, and I'll be covering what's happening in SEO for the travel industry in 2018. So hopefully that will prove to be interesting, and I look forward to have your comments at the end. So let me just start sharing my screen. All right. Let me know when you. Let me know if you can see what I'm sharing.
Yeah, there we go.
Sweet. All right. Well, let me tell a little bit about myself. My name is Frederick, but call me Freddie. I'm the MD at In Marketing We Trust. I work with Kirsty, who is basically helping a lot travel massive. I describe myself as a geek hidden in a suit. Primarily working across analytics and search marketing background, whether organic and paid. I've been spending the last 10 years looking through looking at the web through Google's goggles. And when I'm not boring behind my desk doing keyword spreadsheets or data analytics, I tend to take really crappy vehicles across some of the most desolated and remote places around the world and drive them for fun and charity. So that picture is me in 2012 sticking out of a 1.2 liter Polo in the middle of the Gobi Desert. I drove that with a mate from London to Mongolia to support a local orphanage in Ulaanbaatar. So yeah, that's what I do when I'm not doing search. But unfortunately for you today, I won't talk about my adventures. I'll talk about SEO, because apparently that's a topic that is fairly popular. Briefly, shameless plug about what we do. At In Marketing We Trust, we're basically a digital marketing optimization, and we do a bunch of CRM, campaign management, digital optimization, which includes SEO, and a lot of analytics and reporting. So if you're interested, happy to have a chat later on. So what I'll cover, landscape change, what matters, and things you need to do to improve your SEO. So in terms of a new landscape for SEO, really in the last 12 months, that's been SEO has really significantly changed compared to the last 10 years I've been doing it. The last 12 months have been a step change in the way we think we do, and we recommend working on SEO. So if your knowledge is a bit outdated, don't worry, it might look very different. I've included a lot of reference for you to be up to speed, but things have dramatically changed. So the question I get a lot from everyone in digital marketing is SEO dead yet? The answer is yes, but not quite as you think. It's really it's dead and reborn. So it comes at handy since we're doing that just before Easter. Or if you prefer, we instead of talking about Jesus, we can talk about zombies. Same thing. So is SEO dead yet? Well, it would be dead if Google wasn't basically at the center of all the travel research. Turns out that it's still, with TripAdvisor, some of the most visited websites for travel research. The picture you see here is qualitative research done by Google on how different users interact with large sites. So you get in green the aggregators such as Booking.com, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Skyscanner, so on and so forth. Some element of Facebook and social media, directly the airlines in red, such as Qantas or Tiger Air, Singapore, JetBlue, so on and so forth. And also some of the offline activity with for traditional travel booking. So that gives us an idea of how people research. Google recorded roughly research time about 3 hours and 4 minutes. That's aligned with what we've seen in other researches in the industry, with 15 touch points and some holidays. That's for Australia, going some research going for about 12 weeks. So one thing that Google is doing is when people ask, is SEO dead yet? And the answer is yes, but not quite. Is the search result pages are changing dramatically compared to what we've seen in the past. So Google is really actively moving from just the results with the 7 blue links to now directly answers. So this is a screenshot taken by one of my peers that shows the answer for time in Los Angeles, but it's just the Google answer box and no websites against that. So what it says is basically publishers and general websites must move away from basic answers into really providing complex information, complex answers in order to survive in this world. So in terms of, you would think that will freak people out, going, oh my goodness, how many searches are basically disappearing? How many clicks are we losing? Well, turn out it's not that bad. If we take it at a 100% visibility, you can see in that in the graph provided by JumpShot, the gray dark section is basically searches without clicks. So that would be, for example, the answers I've just shown you, with basically the time, what time is it now, or distance between A to B. The blue one shows the search with organic clicks, so that still represents about 45%. And the paid search ads, so while it's taking more and more space, it's still small compared to what organic provides. So AdWords is definitely getting more and more pixel, more visibility across the SERPs. So these are 2 searches I've done on my laptop, and those results, those screenshots are just what I see before scrolling. So for example, for Sydney hotels, all I see is ads. So right now, all the prices you see on the listings, or even the price on the Westin Sydney, that is coming from the hotel price ads. And for Sydney to Wellington, for the flights, there is only one result that I can see above the scroll. You might think, well, users can scroll down and it will be easy. Well, not so, not automatically. If you provide them with the right experience, with a Google ad product, chances are people might actually just go and use it. And we've seen that across not just the highly competitive terms like Sydney hotels, where the ADR is at $250 per night, but also for less competitive terms. So let's take New Zealand destinations. This is what typically a traditional SERP would look like on the left, and now you start seeing some ads, but you also start seeing some extra information. And on the right side, when you look at desktop, you can see basically the knowledge graph talking about the country, getting data from Wikipedia and other sources. And when you apply sort of heat maps, we really see a difference where basically so the color pattern shows the attention that is taken, that is given to a particular section of the page. So when it's red, people pay more attention to it. When it's green, people have some attention. When it's white, there is not much. And as you can see, the difference on the left, people are actively clicking on the different elements, but on the right, they are actively engaged with the pictures, with and the right side knowledge graph. but when you look at purely the standard SEO results, they're not very active. So reason behind that, well, Google is a listed company, and the do no evil is questionable. From what we've seen is they're trying to fast track the part of the journey where the parts of the user journey where Google doesn't make money. So the traditional 4 stages of travel planning is the dreaming moments, the go-to planning moments, then booking, and experiencing while in destination. And when it comes to the planning section, they're not the most competitive terms at that point in time, but certainly when they go to the commercial terms such as Sydney hotels tonight, or Sydney or flights to New Zealand, or flights from Sydney to Wellington, that's where they make the most money. That's where you see the most competition from both airlines and online travel agencies, as well as meta aggregators. So by fast tracking people from the dreaming to from the planning section straight into the booking section, they actually bypass completely the result page. So right now, I just clicked on the view more destinations in New Zealand, and I arrived with that kind of presentation. And as soon as I click on the flights, I'm still in Google. I'm not in the standard search page, and I'm presented with options from the Google flight page, and all the prices you can see here are basically ads that Air New Zealand, Virgin, and Expedia are bidding on for that particular flight in May. So that's why it gets a bit scary. So now this is a new normal for us, where basically the concept of 10 blue link doesn't exist anymore. And actually, I went in and I have a fairly comprehensive set of keywords with one of our clients. When I say fairly comprehensive, I mean 500,000 keywords being tracked. And out of that 500,000 keywords, I was curious to know how many of the search result page do not have any form of feature or images or things like that. Turns out that out of 500,000, only less than 3,000 have no feature, and only 30,000 just have AdWords. You can see on the right side, the great majority have images, some have answer box, a lot of local listings, obviously, if we're tracking hotels. Some have prices as well, schemas, again, with hotels or flights, star ratings, some have stocks, if we're talking about specific brands, and a lot of videos as well. So I think we can see the extra features, the answer box and things like that as a threat, because it pushes down the traditional 10 blue links or 7 blue links. I see that as an opportunity, simply because the 10 blue links are getting more and more saturated. They have now, if you look at most of the competitive search terms, the majority of them are basically filled with the big guys. They're effectively not really democratic anymore. So having features, featured answers, and other snippets enables other smaller players to still be to still rank, to still get visibility, and I will go through that in a minute. So learning how to leverage those pockets of opportunities is really what I'd like you to come out of this presentation. In terms of also this year, for those of you that look at the organic traffic quite closely, you might have noticed that there's been quite a bit of a chatter on the web about whether some algorithms updates were there or not there. All the tools I looked at basically have shown that since January, the search result pages have been very messy. I've been changing a lot on a daily basis. So this is a screenshot taken from Algorithms by Dejan SEO, a really good tool. Basically, the height of the bar showed the amount of fluctuation on search result pages across a range of keywords for any particular day. So when it's low and it's green, that means not much is changing. Everything is going fine. But when it starts getting orange and above 2 points, that gets 2.2. That starts to get a bit messy. Things are changing and shaking a lot in the search result page. So that means that tracking and ranking and traffic will actually automatically be impacted. Interestingly enough, what we found as well in 2018 is, that's 2017 now in action, is the majority of large algorithm updates like Penguin or Panda are not part of the main algorithm. So the result of that is you won't see massive jumps or drops from one day to the other, but you will certainly see some page being penalized or whole site progressively fade to extinction. And what it says as well, it's SEO and SEO quality becomes a constant cleanup. It's not the case of doing a spring clean every 6 months or every year. There's going to be now checking the quality of your content, the quality of your links, the quality of your user engagement becomes a daily, weekly, if not monthly routine that you need to integrate as part of your work. Another big change, and that really that came with RankBrain last year. The latest goal.io with Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, part of the parent company of Google, basically said that Google went from a mobile first to an AI first company. And as a result, basically what we're seeing is more and more artificial intelligence being brought in search ranking factor and usage within the business. So AI effectively is basically the brain behind the machine crunching the numbers. Before, the algorithm would have required far more human setup to do that. Now with not true AI, but advanced artificial intelligence solutions such as Google or Bing, they're able to really change the DNA of ranking factor by providing situational awareness, context and intent, and user experience gaps. So all things like time of the day, platform, who you are, your search history, but also the aggregated behaviors towards a certain site or a certain web page are now taken into account because they have basically the processing power and the brain, the artificial brain to do the legwork to analyze what's relevant for users by using actual user data and behavior rather than just relying on more static factors. So I'm probably scared of a bunch of you by now, and if you're still around, don't worry, it's not going to be all dark. It's actually more positive than most people think. It's first, I have to remind people that Google remains the main source of traffic for most websites. The source you get that traffic for free. I mean, I'm going to be mean here, but Google doesn't owe you lunch or living. So if you think about other top tech companies in the FANG, so Facebook, Apple, and Netflix, it could be far worse. Think about Facebook organic. To me, that's old. That's an old story. It's purely pay for play. Google see the value in still keeping an open web and having publishers and brands receiving free traffic, because they know that if they create a sticky experience for both users and brands, they will still be able to remain the biggest advertising company in the world. In terms of, while some of the organic visibility has dropped, it's still there. Again, 45% of the traffic still get clicks to organic pages. And the positive things is the algorithm updates tend to really clean up the spam rather than punish good websites. So if you're in this presentation, chances are you might be more looking at white hats, so clean, ethical way of getting traction and rankings in search engines rather than black hat. The other thing is the few elements I've mentioned, such as feature snippets, rewards the best source. And best source are often niche websites, and I'll cover that a bit later. And RankBrain rewards websites with better user experience and answers. So if you have the best answer, you are the most qualified authoritative source in your niche, chances are you actually rank better in Google than you were before. To me, the other thing that is really exciting is now we're seeing up to 30% of search results, at least in US, are driven by voice. So I think 2 out of 3 households in US, and this is insane, have an Amazon Echo, an Alexa on their kitchen benchtop. And Google Mini is selling like hotcakes or hot cross buns. So that's really that's something that is happening. There is a change. While the usage is not consistent, I'm seeing that across not just the millennial teens, but also across a range of user groups. So it's not all gone. And the last thing is, if you've been looking at ranking on Google, well, think about all the other websites that have a ranking functions. Think about the fact that if you know how to optimize on Google, you probably will know how to optimize on other search engines. So the LinkedIn search function is a search engine. The TripAdvisor one, more complicated, closed environment, obviously much harder. Same thing with Amazon, but they are the same principle. You need to understand what are the key ranking factors in what makes TripAdvisor or Amazon or any other tick, and apply those factors to improve your performance. So that's an opportunity to take your knowledge and put that across. And I'll talk about a few opportunities beyond Google later on. So in short, for the landscape change, SEO in 2008 is a new discipline compared to 2 years ago. Really, we've seen 2017 and 2018 change everything. To me, voice search will be a game changer. Also seeing augmented reality and mixed reality to be the next iteration, but I won't cover that just yet. The AI-based rankings, you won't be able to cheat your way into high rankings. The best way to think about it is SEO and organic traffic should be a byproduct of your overall optimization and branding efforts. And that's rather than trying to make your link profile or your content look natural and authoritative, make it authoritative. You will spend probably less time thinking about how to get the best content than thinking of how to make it look like it's the best content. I know it sounds counterintuitive and that sounds great and all grand and things like that, but this is not the general talk. I still look after 20 plus clients from an SEO perspective. I'm in the trenches, sleeves rolled up on a daily basis, helping the team out from a technical SEO and just general strategic perspective. And what we've seen is tactical SEO is not going to cut it in the future. It becomes it becomes too hard to beat the machine at that point in time. The last point, and again, I'll cover that in some of the things we should do, will do. Big brand will dominate the top terms. No matter what you do, we're working with very large online travel agencies and metas and other big chains, accommodation chains. The reality is those guys have deep pockets, large expertise, and all the resources they want, and even them struggle because they're fighting against Google themselves. So you're not going to win the war on top keywords. My recommendation is go niche, really niche. And here's an example of the kind of terms. In 2012, I could have ranked for adventure travel. Now I'm ranking for motorsport adventure travel in 2015. And in 2018, you really want to get that narrowed down to motorsport adventure travel off the beaten path. So sure, it's not going to be the same size audience, but look at the opportunity for engagement with a tighter niche audience that you extract more value out of that. Any questions so far, or should I carry on?
We've got a lot of new members in the audience tonight. So if you guys want to ask Freddie a question at any point, you just need to raise your hand or your fake hand, your computer hand. So you can do that by just clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen, and from there clicking to raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you and you can ask a question.
Okay, well, let's keep going if I don't hear anything. So
we do. Hang on.
Okay, so it's more voice search specific.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that it'll integrate with the the long tail keywords,
mm-hmm.
but so how would we be able to rank well in terms of voice search? So if we don't have anything, any technology that's set up directly.
Thank you very much, sir. The check in the mail, that's exactly the best way to push on to the next section. I'll be covering that aspect in a few minutes on
okay, cool.
No worries. Any other question?
I think that's it for now. Just so you guys know, we will open up the floor to questions at the end once Freddie's finished speaking as well. So if you do want to ask questions, you can hold off if you want, or you can ask whenever. Freddie looks pretty open to it, so.
All good. Okay, so let's talk about what matters now and what you should be doing to improve to make sure that your SEO is future-proof, or even improve your ranking right now. So in terms of, I promise I won't be talking too much about technical. I hope I haven't lied. I don't know how many people are tech-oriented in the team and in the group. I should be pretty light. So technical, what we've seen with technical SEO is really a renaissance. I think the system, the stacks have changed so much since just the basic WordPress that you need to have a slightly different thinking. The first one is obviously mobile. Obviously, 31% of leisure travel booked on smartphone, 53 business travel booked with a smartphone, and even more people do research, do their research phase with mobile. So it's really mobile first experience and indexation by Google that we're seeing. And for those of you that are familiar, over 60% of Google search AMP, which is accelerated mobile page, 60% of clicks from AMP now go to non-news related websites. So AMP is a framework that's been developed by Google and adopted by other search engines as an open web source project. For those of you that attempted it a couple 2 years ago and were really disappointed of a barren strict website that couldn't be tracked and so on and so forth, the whole platform came a long way. And this is and with RankBrain and voice search, it's probably one of the hottest topic amongst SEO professionals. How do you maximize the AMP visibility and presentation? Why use AMP? Well, it's simple. It creates lightning fast experience. It really reduces the size of your web pages. So Google puts the standard load time standard as under 2 seconds. I'm sure if we all go to or page speed insights and test or homepage and a couple of post pages, we may not reach that kind of 2 second threshold. But basically, if you connect automatically with the AMP on your WordPress, it's almost half or more than half your the page size. And if you do further optimization or hand code your own AMP page, it can be even better. In terms of how it looks, well, this is our website. Well, hi Kirsty, you're on show. On the left side, this is by default or mobile responsive site. I've had to scroll down a little bit just to give roughly the same height. Contains the information, contains the buttons and more colors and everything. And on the right side, this is all automated AMP page. A bit more stripped down, but actually I find that the navigation is somehow more fluid, and the difference in speed loading is significant. So it's not like you're going to just get text only and a few blue links. You can actually add buttons. I just got lazy in not doing that just yet. So AMP, it's really something that you should be looking at if you haven't. If you are going to do that, I highly recommend you look at a way to track your pages, because AMP by default strips out all your JavaScript. And if they strip out your JavaScript, they will strip out Google Analytics by default and all other tracking methods. So there are different ways of doing it. There are plugins that exist within WordPress and other platform to actually track your AMP pages, or if like us you use Google Tag Manager to put all your tracking code in. You have a system by default to create an AMP pages. So you go in your Google Tag Manager, you add a new container, and basically in the container setting, you enter the details, sets an AMP, and then you follow the prompt in implementing the different tracking you want on your pages. So make sure you do that. Friend of mine actually saw traffic double from one day to the other by having a hand from a common friend because she forgot to enable AMP tracking on a site and put the right container. So that could have a significant impact on the way you track websites. It's not a straightforward answer as click 2 buttons and you're done. However, it is not overly complicated for you to implement. So that's AMP. That's basically to provide lightning fast pages that are really focused on delivering content rather than loading ads or tracking. I'm sure you have all the experience when you're trying to access a blog or access an article on your desktop or your mobile that isn't AMP. It just takes ages to load, and all you see the loading is all the tracking and all the ads and things like that are really frustrating. So that's the objective, is to create a really good first experience on your site, providing the content and just the content. But once a user is through the site, you might want to look at what we call PWA, or progressive web apps. Progressive web apps are effectively the web answer to native mobile apps. It's a solution to create an app that is accessible directly on a website and create rich user experience that leverage your mobile phone hardware. So again, PWA, not a straightforward answer. You don't create that out of the box on WordPress, but certainly for those of you looking at a more advanced engagement and typically have travel e-commerce websites, that's how I would recommend building a website nowadays. Create a really good smack bang experience on providing information to people landing on your site, and then improving progressively the experience all the way to feels like you're on a native app. So what are progressive web apps? They, as I mentioned, they're just like your smartphone app. So it really makes use of all the phone hardware, location, gyro, and all sorts of things. Quite handy to provide extra information. But they can be used on regular web page to create a richer experience if you are in a native environment on iOS or Android. And I think the one part that isn't automatically scare people initially, go, wow, okay, that looks complicated. No, actually, it makes life a hell lot simpler by creating only one code base. So you can use the same code base for your mobile, for your website, as well as for your native apps directly. So if you intend to run apps on Android and iOS, and you want a website that has some proper functionalities, progressive web app will make your life a lot simpler to do that. So this is an example. Basically, Facebook ad will get you access to all the functions on your phone, whereas a normal site wouldn't. But progressive web apps does the trick. Another thing is when typically people start looking at progressive web apps or more advanced function, and something that is very trendy in the development areas, is a lot of people are looking at using JavaScript framework as both front end and back end. For me, as a web geek, I love JavaScript. I love JavaScript front end and what it can do, and bring really personalized experience and have a much richer engagement. The problem is, as an SEO, it can be a bit difficult to use. I know Angular has been particularly popular in the last couple of years, but actually Angular, despite being built by Google, is actually pretty crap when it comes to SEO. It can't be fetched on Google Search Console. The URL can be indexed, but the content will not be, and you can't test the URL. So far, the platform that I've seen doing the best is React, with the React inline. And I recommend you have a look at it. So if you're working with your devs and they say, oh, we're going to move to a headless system, and we're going to use a JavaScript framework, be careful, because that could have a significant impact on your SEO activity. Effectively, if you just serve JavaScript pages to Google, they won't be able to see any of your content. It will not be loaded directly. So you'll need to pre-render that content. And the pre-render.io is one of the tools that is some of the most popular in the market, but certainly something that you need to look into. So this is a warning. Again, I can spend easily an hour on that. I promise Kirsty I wouldn't. So I'm just going to move on to other topics around developing future-proofing a platform. Something I've seen with the rise of progressive web app Messenger, chatbots, and all the Internet of Things is the diversification of platforms to engage with the brand, to engage with content, and as a result, the thinking around around how we use and produce content has to be updated. For me, your content should not be seen as just a static web page HTML you've created on WYSIWYG on WordPress. That's well and good for up to now, but moving forward, you should look at your content as assets, a database of assets with that can be tagged and cut in different pieces, whether it's to answer a short question on Google Voice, whether it's to be used by your chatbot, whether it's something that you want to send as an alert with your SMS for itinerary change. Those are the kind of things you need to look into. So this is not building a content management platform is not a straightforward answer. There are a couple of them out there that I've looked at and started implementing with clients. If you want more info, I highly encourage you get in touch with me later on to discuss that. But have a think about how your content needs to be viewed as snippets of content, not just that big one document that you built on WYSIWYG and that's it, you won't use again. So the ability to multi-use the content will become critical as the web become more fragmented. And as a result, this is a bit of a schema of how I see the new environment for the web to be developed. So you'll have the front stage, basically the publishing element, where it will be the site content will be published on a responsive site or either on mobile apps or an ebook, game console, or messenger. So it will just go out to those multiple platforms that will being able to embed and use the content in different format. So all your content needs to be format free. It'll just be the raw information. You'll have a content API that will get and pull and input the content in the different front stage based on requirements. And at the backstage, you'll have all the content stored in a database with a lot of tags, and basically you'll have content strategy or AI-driven solution, plus engineering, production team, and business all working towards building different approaches how to use content and making sure that all aspects of user engagement are covered with relevant piece. So that's what I started to see amongst our bigger clients. That's what we've discussed with a number of people we're working with, and also something I've seen amongst the PMO industry. So that's more advanced than most, but certainly from what I've seen in my 10 years is if this is used by the early adopters, it will become a mainstream element for the majority of mid-market, low-end enterprise within the next 1 to 2 years, just to stay competitive. The other things in terms of development is, and this is quite exciting to me, is Google is putting patents out there to bypass completely the standard HTML page. So in the schema is taken from the US Patent Office. You can see that one of the search results says this is not a web page, but Google search a database to find the information for you. This database may be useful to you. So that will provide, instead of going and crawling and indexing an HTML page, they go and make a request directly in database. Hey, someone is looking for a Canon 5D camera under $3,000. If camera warehouse has connected directly to the database and they happen to have a promo on that particular camera for that week or for that day or for that hour, Google will be able to surface that content immediately. And that will be far more efficient in terms of resources. So think about the opportunity, think about what it's open in terms of personalization and what it can create in terms of dynamic search results. You have you're an airline, you want to sell a set of seats. You'll connect directly to you from not just from your website, but actually potentially from your Amadeus or Sabre cache of seats available, and you can start surfacing flights under $200 to Bali because you need to fill up the last few seats that you have in economy before the plane takes off. So that's a kind of opportunity you have, and really create dynamic content based on that, plus potentially personalized content. So your Delta top tier frequent flyer, you have access to a better deal or better deal on business class for certain flights. Well, that will be able to be fetched directly, especially when you get personalized results. So, and again, personalized search, what we'll see is a lot more searches that will appear based on what you're doing and showing things like your Gmail activity. So how do you take advantage of all of that? And starting from something simple. The first one, as I mentioned, of 500,000 keywords that we're tracking for a client, there's only 3,000 that do not have markups on them or do not have ads on them. So my take is, if you're not using markups yet, do it, because it really creates, it's like milk and cookie for Google. It shows them exactly what, from an unstructured data to something really clear and comprehensible, so they can get something really easily read. And even Gary Ellis, webmaster trainer analyst, someone that is quite vocal in the SEO community, says, I want to live in a world where schema is not important, but currently we need it. If a team at Google recommends it, you probably should make use of it. A schema helps us understand the content of the page and use insert and search features, but not ranking algorithm. So it helps you get a better search results, more visible search results, but it doesn't help you rank better, although indirectly it might, and I'll go there in a second. So how to use markup? You want to use markup for a couple of reasons: increasing click-through rate, but also ultimately leading you to get to voice search, which is a hot topic at the moment. So the reason for that is schema creates a rich SERP results. So if you go and Google chocolate mousse right now on your phone or your desktop, you'll see that there are plenty of images, star rating, maybe not in chocolate mousse, but they include some calorie counts, time it takes to cook, to prepare. So really great results. You get a lot of information straight up, beautiful images that come into play, so that you create a richer info. People are ready to use that. And typically rich results, the one with star rating, the one with details, get not only better, a larger size on search result page, but also get better click-through rate. Again, they provide better information, which leads to people being more engaged and wanting to go directly to the page. And what's interesting is a better click-through rate typically is equivalent to a more valid, trusted answer. And this is part of RankBrain, which is the third biggest ranking factor in Google. Is Google look at patterns of what users are doing. And if it turns out that your site is showing, say, in third position, but actually gets more clicks than it's expected being in third position, and actually get more click than, say, the second guys, that will give you a bump up in rankings. So you might go to number 2 just by having a better answer to users, and not necessarily by the traditional SEO ranking factors. So from there, if you are seen as a valid and trusted answer, you get to appear on featured snippets. And most featured snippets, the definition, the way you see that is they are taken from websites that Google consider to be reliable sources, reliable sites with deep knowledge and expertise for that particular topic, and provide also good user engagement. We've been working with the clients for a while, and over the years we've developed thousands of really in-depth, detailed articles about carriers and whatnot, and really became an authority in their field. And now half of their, maybe not half, but a third of their articles are showing now in featured snippet, which means that they get a big chunk of the search result pages appearing automatically. And now what's the cool thing is, not only you get greater visibility, more likely to get more clicks on that page, but also the featured snippets are used in voice answers. So when, if you have a Google Home at home, have a try, and have a try on do a search, see which feature snippets comes out, and ask the same question on what's, and see what they say. Typically, Google say, okay, I found, according to Wikipedia, according to Jalopnik, according to Visit Tokyo, blah, 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 the best time for to view the Sakura in Tokyo is from April to May, so on and so forth. So again, and this starts with just having feature snippets appearing on the site, and good solid content and good solid answers for that. In terms of the snippets you was considering, obviously video units. People also ask, so how you get that is through branding, get search for with after the queries. So ask people to search for your brand. So we had a small test, inconclusive just yet, because it was too small of a sample. But if you use that in your out-of-home campaigns, or in your video campaigns, on your radio campaigns, digital radio or radio, instead of searching for, ask people to search for a specific thing. So the example I've seen on TV a couple of years ago was with TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor said, ask people to search for, don't search for hotel in New York, search for TripAdvisor hotel in New York. And that was very clever, because now it kickstarted an algorithm change, or basically it kickstarted a trend for Google Suggest to, now you start searching for hotel in New York, and the first result you would see is hotel in New York, TripAdvisor. So that was a really, really clever way for them to basically get their brand out there and into search results quickly. So again, not necessarily the easiest, but certainly if you have a niche, that's something you can, or you have a physical location, that's something you can try. Feature snippets, again, your phrasing and the position of your short answer in content, generally at the top. Map, knowledge panel, that's top stories. To get Google News, there is a little bit more setups you can do, but again, everything is very well documented in that space. Make sure all your images are relevant, have attributes are direct embed. I'll talk into more details on how to get traction in there. Apps, books as well. So a friend of mine just published a book on Amazon, and so that's an opportunity to again promote your brand, get some traction, be seen. Anything with tweets, make sure your verified accounts are verified in Google Plus. They're verified across all the setups, so all your entities are connected. And other things like in-depth articles. You can tag those things as, you can tag certain pages as in-depth articles. So that's what I was looking into. So to the person that asked me as well, how do I get to voice search besides the now appearing feature snippets? Schema.org is working on a set of specification that includes speakable. So soon you'll be able to, or right now you can play with it. You'll be able to define what is a speakable answer for voice search, and I recommend using that because from what I've seen, I just came back from South by Southwest, which is basically a bit of a nerdgasm, or the Grand Fest of geeks. It's a bit of the wild, from everyone there, it's a bit of the Wild West at the moment with voice search. It's a bit like the 90s with phone. It's very early days. People are figuring out what they're doing, figuring out how they're going to use the tools. If you can provide directly structured information to say this is what should be said in by an Alexa, Google, or any other Viv or whatnot tool that use, or Cortana use voice search, you'll get an edge, and that will be against bigger companies. My recommendation is trial that. It won't necessarily be a game changer, but see what works. And if you start seeing some impact, then you can roll out to broader sections of your site. Also, part of being able to be listed in voice search is you need to make sure that your answer meets the ratings, quality ratings from a search perspective. And Google has provided some top level guidelines that you can look at once I share the slides with you. If you're a bit stuck in finding what to write for search answer, I think one of the places you could look at, I really like that tool, is Answer the Public. So that's create the diagram on the right. So if you start with OK Google, and you'll see the questions that that people have asked, and OK Google. There was one on Easter eggs. I can't remember. I don't see where it is. But those are all the questions that can be asked with the start and OK Google. And so that could be interesting. At the moment, Google hasn't been very straightforward into the questions that are being asked. But this is something you can look at. Anything with what, who, how, where, basically anything question related is likely to be used in voice search. Remember, when we type for hotels in Sydney, or that's the short version for OK Google, what are some good hotels in Sydney? So now all your keywords, all your phrases will become significantly longer, and that's where we'll have a giant long tail of keywords and content created. So now talking about content, important to understand is look at user intent first, and then your topical depth and relevancy before looking really at keywords. I'm sure if you're here today, you know how to do the minimum keyword research, so I won't go in the details on how to do it. Again, this is an intermediate to advanced session, so what I wanted to cover is more the different aspects about how content is viewed amongst the different search rankings. And one of the top one is definitely RankBrain. And basically, what's RankBrain? It's basically Google secret sauce to analyze how effectively a content can or an article can answer someone's query. And this is particularly relevant for how to answer queries or queries that they've never seen. So this is really the ML/AI part of Google that it started being developed. It looks at not only what's in the content, but also the semantic aspects and the user behavior around that piece of content. So how people, so what does RankBrain digs? So they look at dwell time. So if you basically, how long does someone stay on your page? If the first 5 results are all about a minute, and people click on the first link, they start reading, okay, not what I want, click on the back button, go back to Google and click on the second, and then do the same thing and click on the third, and on the third, instead of staying 1 minute, they stay 3-4 minutes, and they stop searching for the same query. So they go from places to go in Japan, and they might click on Expedia, Booking.com, Wikipedia, and then they go on Lonely Planet. And Lonely Planet, instead of spending a minute each, they will spend 5 minutes. And then the next question is where to stay in Tokyo. Then Google now thanks to things like RankBrain and Google Brain, they start understanding query patterns. So this becomes pretty apparent in the travel space. You go from unqualified to qualified. So next is flights to Tokyo, then hotels in Shibuya, then airport shuttle from Narita to Shibuya, then basically train map to Kyoto. Then all those queries are in sequence. It shows that people go from I don't know where I'm going to I know where I'm going. I'm working out my booking, my trip planning, and I'm actually moving across Japan after that. So that's something that that Google will now be able to understand at a user level. This is especially true if you are logged in to your Google account, which most people are, and even more so if you use an Android device, which represents about 70% of everyone on the planet. So Google has an infinite amount of data they can process about user behavior on how users search and book their travel activities. So I've mentioned dwell time. So one of the key things to look into is see what you can do to improve the session duration. So again, I talked about AMP. This is one. If the site takes too long to load, that would be a bad experience. If the site is not very engaging at first, it'll be a bad experience, and people will end up staying less than 10 seconds and bounce off. Not only it's a wasted opportunity, but it also is potentially a black mark for your site on Google, because people that bounce probably go back to search results after a while. So best way is not only to get them to be engaged the first time, but also work at way to create a sticky experience. What can you do to make them stay longer? What can you opportunity to make them move on to the next question. And often it comes down to understanding user intent for that particular page and what is the next page and the next page, and potentially capturing them. The more people come to your site, the more the personalization engine will kick in terms of showing your site higher when you come to the monetization part. One thing, when I talk about content and information to put on your site, I need to differentiate between two type of content. The one for relevance, which provides answers and queries. So that's really the one that will have the keywords, will be conversion oriented. And then you've got the content that is more content marketing. So to build brand recognition, to build engagement, to get links, to get social shares. My recommendation is always to know what's the objective of one piece. And I absolutely hate when someone say to me, oh, it's for both. That means I've done a bad job at explaining why it's important that a content piece has only one goal, because otherwise, if you say it has to do keyword, it has to do links, it has to do conversion, it has to do social shares, well, the reality is that there's not many type of content, not many pieces that will do that well. It will be more of a rare find and an oddity than with a norm. So next time you think about a content piece you want to create or an idea, think about how you're going to use it. What will be the final objective of that piece of content, so that you can look it in the content plan. And again, in terms of search problem, what are you trying to achieve? If it's for search visibility, user experience, drive qualified traffic and conversions, or if it's for link and signals, and brand recognition for social shares and impression coverage. What's interesting is I've mentioned before that Google is basically fast tracking the planning moment. One thing they haven't really worked at so well is the capture attention moment, which is the dreaming phase. And certainly we looked at it from a competition spend perspective. This is where most of the big brands are not spending the time, budget, and effort. The dreaming part may not be the most commercial, but if you can capture people at that time of the journey, you're more likely to be able to create a sticky experience with them. And if you have media budget associated with it, you can do retargeting for search ads, and all sorts of retargeting, relevant retargeting, without being stalky, with the audience that really engage with you, rather than trying to spray and pray. It's probably better that you take those hundreds or thousands that you've brought in on your site initially and follow them through, as you might get more value out of them, and ultimately you might get a booking for far cheaper, because you've built the experience. In terms of content, I think you've heard it a million times, yet I still get people that ask me that question, that as a content piece. Can you do a top 10 beach to visit type content piece? I looked at it this morning. There is exact match, top 10 beaches to visit, 161,000 articles that matches that particular phrase. It's a little scary. I don't know. I'm actually curious to see how many actual top selected beaches there are in the world. Are they all repeating the same thing again and again and again? It'd be interesting to look into that, but that's for another time. So my recommendation is obviously provide something that is unique, valuable, whether it's an updated seasonality, whether it's a different angle. Friends that are a lot into metal and hard rock, and they love to follow a certain set of bloggers that basically will have a travel blog around their strong musical interest. So that will cover everything from bars to go out, hotels to stay in, places to go to. So this is a really specific angle, and actually gets a lot of traction. Most metal guys are typically geeks, and they will have they'll be fairly engaged audience. Again, one thing that I tell my team and clients is, if you can answer, does the internet needs another page on the topic you want to create, then you've got your answer whether it's relevant. I also recommend looking at things like BuzzSumo, which gives you an idea of popularity and shareability of that particular topic if you're going for a content marketing / brand approach, as well as looking at when you Google that particular term, if someone has already created a content that is as good as you would have done, or if not better. That might answer the question. In terms of what content ranks, in-depth content tend to do far better than smaller one. Here it says approximately 2,000 words. I wouldn't necessarily use that as a standard metric. If you are still commissioning content by the number of words to your writer, please stop. This is something that probably I stopped, and Kirsty could validate. We stopped doing probably in 2013, 2014, because we realized it wasn't necessarily useful. The content that would be produced would be optimized to maximize the pay for the writer, but not necessarily to answer the question correctly. And you might have extra variables that makes the content unreadable. And also, a year ago, it was about 1,800 words, and 2 years ago was about 1,600 words. So there is basically an ongoing content war, and it becomes bigger and better and bigger and better. So what you say, oh, we need 2,000 word articles from now on. Well, in 6 months, you might have, if everyone thinks the same, the new standard will be 2,500 words. So look at answers, in-depth answers that will provide value for the user.
I will just jump in here on that.
Yep.
For our own website, I believe our most popular posts are probably our in-depth ones that we get the most engagement on, and they're probably upwards of about 3,500 words. So I say it is probably getting heavier and heavier all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah,
so we've got a question. Hang on. Yep. Go ahead, David.
Depth content. You mentioned that one is you can break down content, one for reach and one for like sort of delivery in terms of trying to influence the reader. Would you put like severe depth into both types of content?
Good question. It could go into both. So here's an example. So a conversion type content for us would be how to basically get GTM to show up your room availability for your hotel e-commerce platform.
Okay.
And that would be detailed things on what you need to do, what container, how do you have what tag you're using, JavaScript injections and all of that. So that would be very technical, very detailed. That won't get many shares. That won't get many links. But the people that's going to read it are going to be the people that we probably want to work with. exactly. So within part of the process, there will be something around, hey, hello there, who are you and what do you want to do? Should get in touch. If you struggle, that's probably going to take, that takes for specialists about 10 hours to do. But if you don't know how to do GTM correctly, that might take you 50. We could do that. So whereas something that would get me a lot more visibility and traction is, for example, the regex guide for analytics. So how to use the different regex characters. I'm using that actually. Lunametric done a fantastic job at that already. But those are the kind of content piece that they're not going to necessarily convert people, but they're going to be interesting and they could be a reference for others. So I'll be reaching out to other analytics data bloggers that talk about that. I will actually invite them or discuss, share with them what I'm creating, and in the hope that they use that as a reference piece. Or I can actually later on, if I go and present something in another website. So if I guess right in whatever other industry article, I can say, well, blah, blah, blah. And oh, by the way, we're using extensively regex. You should check out our article. That's relevant for that. I get a link to that. That helps.
Cool. All right, thank you.
All right. Cool. So in terms of talking about depth of content, there is depth of content for one page, but also think about depth of content across the board, across your website. And what we're seeing is you've got the behemoth, the Skyscanner, the Expedia, the Booking.com, the TripAdvisor, so on and so forth, that are dominating the SERPs. But what we're seeing also is smaller, more targeted websites get some good visibility and ranking. And this is an example. I'm researching at the moment places to go in Japan. I'm finally taking some holidays. That doesn't involve crazy vehicles and things like that. For the moment, I may go sumo and samurai sword training, but for now, I'm just looking for ryokan. This inside Kyoto, which is really, really specific, on an old, as you can see, 2012, on an old article, is ranking above TripAdvisor, is ranking above Booking.com for something, because Google figured out those guys are the most relevant authority when it comes to telling me where to find a ryokan in Kyoto. So, and you can see that takes a big chunk of the SERPs, and they appear twice above the big guys. So was really looking into that. I say across the board, it's important because not only you get seen as an authority, also Google is now starting to take that into consideration. So with related keywords, you want to bring in keywords that are semantically connected, basically keywords that they will see as important in the context or understand the context. So the example from LSI Graph showing between Apple, Keynote, iPhone, App Store, Watch, and things like that versus apple pie, bananas, and fruits and recipes. The keywords associated with one and not the other will create a different sets and different environment. And having an article on Apple iPhones, the evolution of the App Store, the new Apple Watch and the warranties and the common defects and things like that, this will create an authority around the Apple product. Like I'm a bit Mac-tarded. I don't have anything Mac, but I think it's Mac Rumors that is ranking very well, and sometimes ranking above Apple themselves, who have a lot of authority for anything Apple related, because they have desktop content, they have user engagements, they have and they have RankBrain, which sees people going, okay, I've gone to Apple, I've gone to their service. Unless I go to the Genius Bar, I'm just going to find a forum that tells me what to do. So if you can create that, that would help. Other opportunities I've seen in creating, and this is more for the bloggers. I've noticed there were a few of you guys in the event. So one area you can look at is also do some in-depth reviews. Again, I'm searching for hotels in Tokyo, and someone mentioned that there was a Godzilla hotel. So first thing I do, I just jump on my keyboard and find that. Well, the first website is actually the hotel website. But what I found interesting is right after you've got the images, and the first two images are from that blogger, La Carmina, and she has by far the best post and the best thing on the Godzilla hotel compared to the TripAdvisor, compared to Expedia's and whatnot. Simply put, it's fairly straightforward. It's because online travel agencies, booking websites are transactional in nature. They look after the booking part. They assume that you've done enough research, or that the small amount of information they provide you in the booking path will be enough for you to book, but it doesn't account for unique properties. So partnering with unique hotels, tours that need more visibility is certainly something that can be a win-win. It gets them some traction. It gets them some extra bookings by creating a more authentic experience, or giving users a real view of what it's like in that particular hotel, that particular tour, but also for you, because you might be ranking well for terms like that. And as I mentioned, she's appearing high on images, and I think this is really important, especially because 1 in 5 searches are for an image. So again, from James Shots in May 2017, so starting to get a bit old. We have over 20% for Google Images, and YouTube is tiny. Maps, so on and so forth, is not that big. But that still represents a lot. So, and pics can really drive more traffic to your site. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but before you were able to just click directly on the image. Now that button is gone, and so you visit the page directly. So that image image user experience, that Google image user experience, is likely to drive you more visitors. I'm sure the question will come up about, can you track how much traffic you get from Google? Not in Google Analytics, but you can do that in Google Search Console. If you stick around, I'll show later. You go in Google Search Console, you go in search queries, and there's a drop down to look at results, web, app, and images. So you can see that. The good thing is also you get your image that's likely to be borrowed. So what you need to do a good job at image SEO. Let's take that example. So descriptive file name. So Godzilla Hotel Monster Statue, Great Circuit Tokyo 14, whatever. That's pretty clear. Godzilla Hotel Tokyo Japan for the alt tag. She didn't put any image description, but right below the relevant copy close to the image. Then you can stay at Godzilla Monster Theme Hotel. Again, not Godzilla Hotel, but good. She has some variations. Keyword rich page title. I stayed at Tokyo's Godzilla Hotel, Great Circuit Japan, and it's a review. SEO friendly URL. She has a classic 4:3 format and medium size dimension. So again, not crappy quality and not enormous. So anything that is under 500 pixels is probably going to be a bit too small. Anything that is over 2000 should be okay. However, I'd say stay in the middle, because you might end up with more trouble uploading the images and optimizing the images. And I haven't seen descriptive anchor text, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't have any pointing to that particular image or that particular page. This is also quite important. If you make reference, if you link to many from many places to that particular image, you're likely to rank on that. Other elements, you can submit an image sitemap to Google. I haven't found anything. Type on the algorithm. I haven't seen anything that says whether they use EXIF data or not. You can look into that. Watermarks do not matter. So Google Master says they don't look into it. Make sure, again, you have unique metadata. If you have specific pages for your images, like in WordPress, that's something you want to make sure that they are unique across the board. And the last one, that's the common standard. It's not gonna happen overnight. Try on a few elements, especially on reviews you know will be popular. You get shares, you get links, you get traffic, because those are the ones that'll be worth optimizing, because they have a number of social signals that look into it. In terms of the rest of the page, in terms of content, elements you want to look into, content relevance to the central area of your website. So if you are inside Kyoto and you talk about the ryokan in Kyoto, well, that's very relevant to that. If, however, you talk about ryokan in Kyoto and you're selling rocking chairs, that's a bit far. What's interesting is the word count, the keyword in body, description, title, and H1s are not necessarily as important as most people think. They actually not necessarily positively correlate with with ranking. Again, a warning: correlation is not causation. It's not because you get the keyword in H1 that automatically you will rank less. We're seeing those two elements appearing. It doesn't mean that one causes the other. But my take is do not obsess automatically having the keyword in H1 in title and description. It's recommended, but there is no evidence that right now modern SEO says there is not automatic evidence that it will have a direct impact on your ranking. I think it's good practice anyway to have that, because if you have title and if you have a keyword in title and description, well, it will appear in bold when people search for that. So if you have Godzilla Hotel, when I type Godzilla Hotel and I see the results, I can see bolded in the description, I visited the Godzilla Hotel, view my review, check my review. That will pop up in the search results. And if you have Godzilla Hotel in the title, you probably, from a user experience perspective, you want the H1 to match closely what the title says. Otherwise, if you say hotel in Shinjuku and then Godzilla Hotel, there's a bit of misunderstanding. You go, am I reading the same content? Did I fall on the wrong page? So if you say, here's my review of Godzilla Hotel, and then here's the review of Godzilla Hotel in Shinjuku, that's consistency. Basically, it's less cognitive load for the user. I'm sure you guys use, for those of you that have Yoast, I recommend you use it. It gives you the tick the boxes, make you feel good. You get a little green dot next to your articles, gives you some elements. I'll be cautious about a couple of points around the number of times the keywords appear, the keyword density, because this is a bit more traditional SEO. Again, think about the different, think about the semantic aspect. If it's more relevant, if it flows better to use associated terms than the actual keyword, because the actual keyword may be a bit awkward to say verbally, then do so, rather than trying to force a specific density for that particular term. what's not looking like, but again, that's something. Now, authority signals. As I mentioned before, SEO is a byproduct of what you do in optimization. So have a look at what else should you do. With so much more data points from Google and others about the engagement, I wouldn't be surprised that soon enough we'll start seeing email spam score entering into SEO. Obviously, blogging, I'm sure news and media, most of you are doing it. I touched briefly on the videos for dwell time. That's relevant. Forum, if you engage. Social bookmarking is a little old, although Reddit can be something that can bring down a site very easily if you bring something relevant. Things that are, one thing that's coming back from the depth is podcasting. I'm hearing more and more people talking about it as a way to get in the ears of people in a market that has not as much competition than, say, YouTube, but it's still that still have a very solid audience and very engaged audience. So what are some of the elements you might want to consider? And yes, unfortunately, links still matter for rankings. That's pretty straightforward. I think last year or a couple of years ago, Google actually tried to remove links from the algorithm and say it was the search engine was not ready. It was a disaster, and the results were actually way worse than they were. So I think links over time will get less and less value compared to, say, user engagement. But there's still something you need to look at. And as I mentioned early on, with Penguin being part of the main algorithm, you really want to strive for quality over quantity for the different links you're building. So again, back to basics. Search engine judge you by your links, who you're connected with, and how. Question on why people link to you. They know you or your favor. That's the obvious one. You've got a unique, interesting, engaging website. You link to their website in return. So you do an interview with someone, and they make mention of that interview. You provide content, so that's more the guest posting approach, but don't use it excessively. In May last year, Google added in their quality guideline that excessive use of guest posting is considered a spam technique. Financial incentives, put careful there. This is to be part of something bigger, but say, for example, you're sponsoring a meetup in your area, you're buying drinks, or your company is sponsoring some activities. So I've seen Airbnb do that. I live in Manly, Australia, and Airbnb is sponsoring the Surf Life Saving Club I'm part of, and they ended up being on the website and having a link to it. So don't do that just for links, but you might get value out of it as part of a broader community engagement. Obviously, if you make mention of people, you improve the profile and ego product. I remember the day Guy Kawasaki, the chief evangelist at Apple, and then Canva, basically started tweeting about an article, an interview that Kirsty did with him. That was pretty cool. 3.5 million people getting a view of the article. I was happy. But basically, even the biggest guys can be invited to speak and can return the favor of giving you some visibility, some audience. Obviously, most relevant resources for us as when we do consulting with firms, data tools are the things that we're using now as our main solution to gain traction, especially for PR or just for resource link. If you solve people's answer with a tool, with calculators and things like that, or with the relevant up-to-date data, you're more likely to have something unique. And obviously, if you're the only or first person to talk about it, that you get the first mover advantage or famous trusted source like Wikipedia. And to be very clear, no, people won't link to your boring product category page. It's very hard to get links to the hotels in Sydney page for most online travel agencies or Meta or general aggregators, simply because they are transactional boring page. So that's something that if you push people to do that, the chances are the links that will be created will not be either relevant or good quality, and potentially people might end up doing some spammy approach to get links. So watch out for that. Make sure that you keep a close eye and consider that getting links to other pages might be more appropriate to build the authority as a whole. Link building is definitely an ongoing work. This is an example of a site worked with. It took over a year to get some traction, and we launched PR campaign, build base link, we get industry links, content to get links, and again go back to PR type. Now we have a bit more traction and visibility, etc., etc. So this is an ongoing battle, and some of the methods that I recommend using that are safe: get the target site's user involved in content creation. So gather and share data, which I think is great for PR. I've seen today that Google survey is rolling out to 50 different countries. That's a great way to quickly get some demographic research. News sites love using that. Again, build tools. That's what we've been doing at AMWT to get some traction. Another opportunity is reach to unlinked mentions. Sometimes that might turn into an opportunity, although I'll be talking about that in a second. That's a way to maximize visibility. Reach out to linkerities, so the people that do produce good content, whether they're journalists or bloggers, popular Redditors, so mods of relevant subreddits. Also get local links, as simple as that. School, sports center, meetups. I run a meetup here in Sydney. I'm sure if you say I shout the beers for the guys for this meetup, I'd happily put you as a sponsor for the meetup on my meetup page. That's a DA98 link for those of you that are obsessed with domain authority. And so long it's relevant to a niche, that could be something could be something worth considering. Have a look at what makes a link-worthy story, whether it's a timing thing, the reason to cover, if it's a new or unique information because no one else has it, if there's a purpose, if there's a greater value to behind what you're doing. Getting an authority profile is very important. We've done that with a number of teammates where we've built the authority over time. We get them to write a bunch of content initially on client sites, and then we encourage people to go and pitch to second tier publications and get some stories published. You don't have to even link to it. It's just to build your profile as a writer in that particular field, in that particular industry. And from there, you have writing examples, you have examples on third-party websites, and from there you can get better publications. So some of us got published on Engadget, Entrepreneur, Forbes, HuffPost, Resin Carrierist, AOL, Chicago Tribune, so things like that. And they're not the people that got published and get those great mentions. They're not necessarily journalists by profession. Most of them are content producers, content writers initially, but with a bit of a practice and enough background and profile, you can get to those levels consistent. And Kirsty will have far more experience to talk about that. But I think I'm running out of time, so I'll move on. What are you, in terms of what you're asking them to link? Make sure you offer something that makes sense to link to, that respond to their news agenda. Be sure to be personable, and work with the relevant experts. So if you say, I'm Joe Blow and I've got a great article on Bitcoin, and you send that to the random AFR journalist, you can be sure that it's not going to go very far. However, if you, I've worked with money.co.uk, and I've worked with Professor XYZ of University of Lancashire, and I'm writing to John Andrews, who is a specialist in cryptocurrency in the Financial Times in London, then you've got a far greater chance to get in front of that person, especially if you already stalk them and engage with them on Twitter and other social media. So something worth considering. Again, it's basic human behavior in terms of how you're going to get, you're asking someone for a favor, see what you can do first before you asking them to do something. So that was for links. One cool thing, and I'm hoping that will become a reality soon. It's already the case for Bing. But it's the idea of linkless mentions. So that becomes more akin to branding exercise. But basically, Google, so Bing is doing that, and Google hopefully are doing that soon. If you get your name out there, if you get your brand name out there, without necessarily receiving an hyperlink, Google might still see that and counts that towards your profile, because it's a mention, it's a vote of confidence. They're talking about it, provided that is in the positive light. They're talking about your company or your brand. So that's a way to get visibility and authority signals. Again, if nobody talks about you, but they only link to you, that will be the kind of things that Google and Bing will certainly be looking at in terms of, it's interesting. They're really over-optimizing the links, but nobody is really talking about that brand. How come? So have a think about the different elements of that now search engines have to determine whether a brand is relevant, and their trust signals, their ranking signals, is actually coherent across the board. Because if you are over-optimized and getting links, but nothing about branding and mentions and stories, well, especially if it's not in your field, then the chances are search engines will look at it and say, there's something weird. There's something not quite right. And again, something that is not often said in the industry, not enough said in the industry, is Google does not understand quality. They understand patterns of quality. So if you think you're going to beat an algorithm at identifying patterns, that might be a bit difficult, especially considering the amount of data they're processing. So what are the kind of things you look into? Other elements, my recommendation is going in channel diversification. So video, social, and content aggregators. So for example, you can target different video, different audience, and push that across adverts, in-stream or online learning if you have something a bit more complex. Make sure you put your brand on Facebook. Video SEO has elements of standard SEO. I won't go into the details, but certainly worth doing it. That was the case 2 years ago, and it keeps on getting bigger and bigger. Have a look at, make sure you can reutilize that across Facebook due to the lead engagement we're seeing. And again, Facebook is a pay for play environment, but still worth considering. Other aspects, those content aggregators like Flipboard are really relevant, and they're getting apparently they're getting monthly active users. They're getting over 100 million monthly active users, and getting more and more traction. Another one is Medium, where you can still get some authority value by being present on a popular publishing platform. And according to SimilarWeb, they've got about 75 million monthly unique visitors. So certainly worth considering. Others are make sure you get your content to go native on Android and iOS. When I'm bored, I just click and flick on the Google News that I see on my Android. Again, an opportunity to get visible. Same thing with Feedly as well. You can just publish the RSS and be done, or you might want to tweak a few more things, get the right hashtags and things like that, and be more discoverable. Certainly, travel is a big sector in Feedly. And that was it, because I realized I've taken a lot of your time. So that was me. I'm sure you got plenty of questions. I certainly would have, because I left many opportunities out there.
Yeah, okay, so we will open it up for questions now. Guys, if you have any, I briefly mentioned before how to raise your hand so I can unmute you. But you can do that by pressing the participants button at the bottom of your screen and then clicking to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. No, maybe not. We've got a quieter bunch tonight, I think, maybe.
I killed them all.
Okay, so I guess we'll leave it there then. So this webinar will be available for you to share next week. So expect an email from me when the recording is up. So thank you so much for joining. And as always, don't forget to sign up for our other upcoming events. And obviously enjoy your Easter break, guys, for those who are celebrating, and for those that aren't, enjoy your weekend. But again, if you guys do have any follow-up questions, which I know you guys often do, even though you don't always participate in question time, don't hesitate to email myself or Freddie. I believe Freddie put his email address up on the last slide there. Tell them what it is, Freddie. I think it's frederick@inmarketingwetrust.com.au.
Yep. There you go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. So you can email Freddie or myself. I think you guys know how to email me by now. So thanks again, guys. And hopefully I'll see you at our next event.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.